welcome to Just Play the Melody. And the fellow who said that was Jackie Gleason. And I wanted to give him the credit because he did have some of the world's best music. And he arranged and produced some of the best LPs and some of the best television music we've ever had. And the melody is probably the hardest to play. That's why we're doing this video, because so many people find it so hard. And we need to establish some ground rules first, I suppose. And that's what we're going to do right here. We need to remember one thing. The melody is a story. It's someone else's story. What we're trying to do is emulate or tell the story of someone else's emotion. Now, we as steel players are really guilty of not knowing the melody, number one. That's why we can't play it. We don't listen to the song enough. So we need to start listening to the song and finding out exactly how does this story go. In other words, it's in notes and not in words, but the notes tell the story. Now, if we were singers, we could help tell the story in words and by the melody, but we are not capable of telling the words on the guitar. So what we have to do is make up for that fact that we can't tell this story that this other person wrote in words. We have to do it all in notes. So we have to be even better at the melody than the singer might be, for instance. The other thing is we must know our guitar well enough that we can tell that story. It's sort of like if we didn't know the English language, it would be hard to tell a story to someone in words. The same way, we must know on our guitar exactly where the notes are going to fall. For instance, if a song's in the key of C, we need to know where all the legal notes. That's what we call scales, by the way. Legal notes are scales. And scales is a bad word. I hate to use that because that's kind of scary. Or it's just out and out boring. Too many people teach scales. And that's what we're going to be learning, but we're going to use it in a practical way. So what we have to say this, we are guilty of noodling and fooling around when the break comes, let's say in a song, because we really don't know how the melody goes, and the other most important thing is we don't know where it is even if we knew where the melody went, let's say that, on our guitar. Most people are not well enough acquainted with the guitar in terms of the full scale or all the legal notes. So that's what we're going to take right off. Remember one thing, since this story is so important, if you don't strive to tell the melody, then you're not going to communicate with the audience. In fact is, most of the time we're kind of lost. That's why we're noodling. And that comes across to the audience. That comes across to the band. And it's real easy for them to figure out. We don't have much direction. So really, when you go for the melody and when you learn the scales, your playing is going to take on a whole new meaning. Your playing is going to have authority and a new direction to it, rather than just a meandering about. That noodling we're talking about. So by doing this, you're going to have a lot better style, if nothing else. You're going to please the audience. You're going to please the singer a lot more. You'll also find out something, too. By going for the melody, you won't get quite so bored with your own playing. Remember something. Since this is a story as well, you are trying to tell the story that someone else wrote. Now, if you noodle around and don't play that exact story, in effect, you're like a gossip or like a storyteller that lies in this story. In other words, you're not being paid to make up a new song. And that's what steel players do. That's what I've been guilty of doing. And I've been on a lot of record sessions and I worked for producers that said, just play the melody. That's the most important thing. That's what this song's about. That's that story. You're not being paid to rewrite this song. If they want you to write a song, they'll say, hey, write me a song. But that's not what you're in this band to do. You're here, especially in your break, or if you're going to play an instrumental. But especially, that's what you're paid to play in the band, is the break part. You know, if you're working in a little 4 or 5-piece group and it's a gospel group or a country group, you have to play something in the middle that tells about this song. If you just go wandering off and playing chords here and there, in effect, you have lied to these people about what this song is about. You've left the context of the song. So playing the melody is the most difficult because you have to get the notes in exact order as this author wrote this story. So there's two things most important about the melody that we're looking for. The exact order of the notes, number one. The other thing is the phrasing or the timing. And if you don't use the phrasing, for instance, in effect, what you're doing is reading a story, or let's say, what if you read a book and it had no question marks, it had no periods, it had no exclamation points in it. It would just be a continuous flow of words, and it means nothing. So it's meaningless to play without phrasing. Steel guitar players, I'm afraid, And guitar players and fiddle players, for that matter, are the worst in the world about starting a string of notes, and you'll play for 2 minutes and never stop. A phrase has a phrase. It starts, it stops, there's a little wait in time. So what we're looking for as we study melody is not necessarily that there are notes and this is the way the notes are arranged. That's true. It's nice to have that arrangement, but remember how the singer and how the words go so you get the phrase in there. Now, the easiest way to learn this, and we're going to take scales, but we're not going to take them all at one time. We're going to take them in little 2- and 3-note sections, because we'll find also that a melody always takes a 3- or a 4-note line of notes, never 7. There are 7 notes in a scale. But we don't have to take all 7 notes, and we're never really going to play all 7 notes all at one time. A phrase that a singer might sing is usually 3 or 4 notes. So it's nice to know we're going to break this thing up. Fact is, we're going to take the key of C, and we're going to learn the scales in the key of C. Now, don't panic. There are several different scales that we use, and then we can also play in other keys. That's easy. The thing is, if you learn the scale well, and we're going to study C very well, along with a rhythm track, so you actually hear how all these notes fit together. The thing is, if it goes to the key of D or the key of G, you don't have to learn new scales. All we do is move them left or right, up and down the fretboard. So the easiest thing is learning the scale in one key. We have 2 goals there. We want to learn that scale so well that we can play in the C key without too much thought. And then comes the hard part. Goal number 2 is to learn what that scale will sound like. Every note. What will it sound like before we play it? If you're going to guess it where the melody is, you first must know about where it's going to fall, and that's what we're going to study. And I can teach you that. I can teach you the pattern. That's the secret word, is the pattern of the notes. Several ways to find the melody. But one thing I can't put in your mind is how they sound. I know how they sound, but that came with repetition, years of doing it. So I can teach you on this video where the pattern is, and we'll use them, little 3- and 4-note sections. But also, you have to play them enough times with enough repetition. It may take a year, it may take 2 months. I don't know. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different stroke about how they learn, how they remember. The important thing is that you learn how they're going to sound on your own before you play them. Again, that's easier if you do it in little 3- or 4-note sections. Now, when we get right down to the scale, we're going to find that a scale is easier to remember if you recognize it for what it is. In fact, I've written like a little C scale here on the board, and we'll go through it. What you're going to find is that in the key of C, the scale is a pattern, that's true, but it's a pattern of certain notes on the guitar. In the key of C, the regular chords, if we were to play a song in C, would be C, F, and G7th in there. That's the standard, the 1, 4, and 5 chord, or the dominant, the tonic, the dominant, and the subdominant. So what happens in a scale, it can be broken down to the fact that we're going to play C, F, and G over and over and over from left to right up and down the fretboard as it falls. Fact is, let's go right to the board and you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's just take the first 3 notes in a scale. Everyone relates to C being on 3 with A and B pedal down. All I've written down here is the 5th and the 8th string. I'm not going to play 3-note scales, just 2-note harmonies. But 3 with the A and B pedal, if I wrote 3B right there, that would be a C. But I'm not going to play the 6th string, so I'm leaving that out. But you can see that a C is right there. If we back up to the left 2 frets and hit the D lever on 1 with a D lever, that's the sound of a C in itself. So this is where a little C scale will start. This is an actual C chord. So there's a C. That's why I wrote that down there. As you come up 1 pedal, just the A pedal without the D there. That looks like 1A, and that's true, that is 1A. But it is also the sound of a D minor or a G7. So in effect, that's why I wrote that. So it's a C to a G7. It's 1 with a D lever, 1 with the A pedal, up to 3 with the A and B, literally. But that's where a C is. That, in effect, will make a phrase in itself. We can go down through the scale, we can go up through the scale, but that's just a little 3-note sections. Many, many songs will have that sound to it. Now let's move up the scale just a little bit. We'll take the next 3. Notice we say 3 with A, up to 4, A and F. That's an F chord. Let's go 1 more, up to 6, A and F. That's a G chord. So literally we've gone from C to F to G in these 3. Some folks don't recognize that 4A and F is an F chord. It's a new spot. Maybe if you have to learn that, that's fine. Take that. Let's go on up then. Let's go on up all the way up to 8. from 6A and F to 8A, that's literally part of an F chord. That's why I wrote that there. It could sound like A minor, that's true. But if you had 8A and B right there, that would be F. On up to 10A, that's part of a G. So we start with an F on 8, a G on 10A. Let's go on to the right just a little bit more, up to 11A and F. This is a little three-note section, 8 to 10 to 11. That's a C too. So as we've gone up this scale, we're establishing little legal notes that are nothing but C, F, and G. Let's move right on up. We're taking it past an 8-note scale or a 7-note scale. From 11 up to 13A, literally that's nothing but a repetition of 1A. So again, that's the sound of a G7th. And finally, let's end up way up here on 15A with A and B pedals down. That's a C again. So literally, we've got a full line of notes here that has the sound of C, F, and G, pure and simple. If you recognize the scale for what it is, of course there's going to be more scales, but in every case, the sound of the scale, and let's kind of throw that word out. That word scale is scary sometimes. What these are, they're basses. This is a game. We're going to take the sounds that fit in C. They're noises. That's a nice word. They're noises, and the way some of us play them, that's truly what they are. The important thing is this, that we're in the key of C. If we want to find the melody to a song in the key of C, we're going to take these notes. Now, in the key of C, it will change chords, won't it? A lot of times it'll go to an F or a G7th. You don't have to go to the chord of F with the band and play F scale. The key is literally what it says. When it says the key of C, play C scale. What you'll find is that in most songs, let's say if it was a very complicated song, you'd have C, F, and maybe G or G7th. And what if it went to minors then? Many times a song in the key of C would go to A minor. Literally, all the notes in the key of C scale will fit A minor as well. So all these notes we've just gone over can fit A minor should this song go to it. So we don't have to go to an A minor scale. We'll see this as we go through it. It might go to a D minor. That's a relative minor in the key of C. These same notes will fit D minor. It might go to an E minor in the same thing. So we have C, F, and G. We have A minor, E minor, and D minor in the key of C. So this one scale, without having to chase all these others around, will become all those chords. Now, they won't do that by themselves. The band does one part. Literally, what we're talking about is that the bass note establishes what chord it really sounds like, not what you're doing. We'll use these same exact notes, and as the chord changes, you'll hear the scale change. So let's pay attention to that as we're playing along. In fact, we'll take some little exercises, and you'll hear the scale change color, literally. Same notes, but it sounds like we've changed chords. So it's very, very easy. Let's keep it simple that way. So what we're going to do is take the scale in short pieces. We're going to establish that it can work against a C or an F or a G. Don't change those chords with them. You don't have to chase the chords, we say. Now, it's true. We want to know what chord the band is playing, because if you want to start your phrase or stop it, there are places in the scale that look like F. We want to stop on an F if the band's playing an F. If they stop on a G, we want to stop on a place in the scale that is G. But all this will take care of itself. But that's the ground rules. We want to use one scale. Now, we'll learn this scale well, and there are going to be 3 or 4 others we'll take all at one time, and they all get mixed up. We're going to call them routes. So they're like highways from one place to another. So that's what we'll have. We're going to learn them well in C. And then when we change keys, we could take this same scale, that is C scale here. And if we wanted to play an A, let's say A is 3 frets to the left or down from C. Take the same scale and just transpose it. 3 frets to the left. You don't have to learn a whole lot of new stuff. Take the same thing. The trick is knowing it real well before you try to change. So we're going to take C scale every way we can take it. We're going to take it down. We're going to take it up. The real mystery and the secret about scales is knowing them so well that you don't have to fight to play them. So repetition is the real key. We're going to learn them on this video, but then you spend the hours with it, and it'll give you every kind of melody you ever want. If you want to play the melody to Release Me or Cold, Cold Heart or Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain or up to Crazy Arms, they will come out of the scale. And that's the secret to finding it first, is knowing that scale. So we'll stop right here. We'll come right back, and we'll take the first little few steps of the scale, and we'll work right through it, and we'll take several different routes. 1 to 2 to 3 different routes, and then we'll start mixing them all up. And you'll see it becomes magic. There's all kinds of new things can come out. It'll make your playing a lot more exciting. It'll challenge everything you do every time you get a chance to play, because you find that the scale works a different way in every time. So this is the most exciting way to play. And it pays off too, because everybody knows you know exactly what you're doing. So stick with us. We'll come right back. Okay, let's start with those first little sections, like 3 and 4 note sections. But let's say one thing. As you'll notice in the first page of your book, that's almost identical to what we did on the board there. You're going to notice something right off. We're going to play these things along with a rhythm track, and that's the first rhythm track on your cassette. And it's no more than just a C vamp, we call it. It's rhythm, and it's kind of a nice little loping C chord rhythm, but it doesn't change chords. It doesn't go to F or to G. I want you to hear the C scale along with a C chord and a C bass note. And you'll notice right away that some of the notes, for instance the first one, the one with the D lever, sounds just exactly like C. Well, we go through other notes that don't sound like C, and they're what we call tension notes. So you'll hear notes that are wrong. Literally, tension means it's wrong. We don't stop on the wrong note, we stop on right one. So you'll find places in the scale where we go through a series of maybe 2 or 3 notes that are an F harmony or a G harmony or a G7th harmony. Those notes are necessary. They are what make it interesting. So what we're going to do is start with a C chord and try to end with a C chord, because this is a C vamp. But we will go through those odd tension notes, and sometimes we'll have to kind of cheat to make sure we land on a C each time. So let's go right in your book to the first page there, and go right on your cassette to the first rhythm track, which is the C rhythm track. So let's go right to the guitar into the book, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. The first line there on page 1 starts with that 1D, and that's a C chord, literally. If you played the 5th string, the 7th, and the 8th, you'd have a C chord there with the D lever in. Maybe that's a new position to you. The other thing is if you just play 5 and 8, and then you go to 1A, there's that G7 sound, up to 3A. Now that sounds a little bit like a melody even in itself. It sounds like maybe do, re, mi, that's true. Or you can do it the other way, which is the second half of the line, which starts on 1D. A different harmony note here is all. Up to 3 with no pedals, and then the 3A. So you can do it both ways. They're both right. Or the second way, all that happens is that the harmony changes in that second note. Here's the 1A. Here's the 3 with no pedals. So the same top note is there, but we might want to hear different harmony notes. That's why I've given it to you both ways. But remember, we can play this up as it's written, or we can do it backward. Scales are either up or down, and melodies are either up or down. So there we have it. Or, now let's do this along with a rhythm track so you hear exactly how all this fits against the bass note. Notice how the 1A is a tension. Either end, 1D or 3A, sounds right. Here it is along with the first rhythm track. We can do it slow, easy little phrase.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now let's do that backwards. Let's do the second half. Up to 3, no pedals. And maybe backwards that same way. Now you can speed that phrase up if you want. Or end it any way you want to, or start. All of a sudden we have a little 3-note scale that becomes some melodies in there. Listen to that. Or a lot of melodies go right through those same little chords. So there you have it. That's a nice simple little way of taking 3 notes. Notice that we start with a C and end with a C sort of harmony, and we use that tension note in the middle. Well, let's go to the second line there on page 1. This takes another part of the scale. We go up to 6 with the D lever. Now there's several ways of getting this sound. That's why we have a second half of the line. But we'll start with 6D. Now this is not a C position, so this is going to be a kind of an odd tension spot too. This is sort of an F chord sound. Up to 8D, that's sort of a G chord sound. and then to 8A. Well, none of those are C. There are either F, G's, or a G7 sound, either one of them, so we can put those three parts together. But none of those are going to sound exactly like C, so get ready for that sound, and maybe backward. Or we can do the second half of that line using 4A and F. Same sound though, isn't it? To 6A and F. Up to 8A. So here's the first half of the line, the 6D to the 8D. And here's the second half, the 4A and F. So there's two ways to get identical same sound, and there's a reason for that. We'll get into that as we get into the melody. So, to play this along with a rhythm track, we've got a C chord going here. Now if we play this harmony note first, that's going to sound kind of odd. So don't start with 6D. Let's start with the C note, maybe on 3A. Now we'll go to the 6D, up to the 8D, to the 8A. Now if you just turn the A pedal loose there, that would be a C chord. We could actually end the phrase right there. So maybe this little exercise may be 3A, up to maybe 4A and F, to 6A and F, to 8A, and maybe back down through it. But try to end up on a C either on 3A and B, or maybe up here on 8, which is not written there, but just 8 with no pedals. Along with a rhythm track. Here it is. Nice and easy, but we start. Second line, but let's start with 3A. Now, strange harmonies here. Back to 3A. Oh, the second half using 4A and F. 4A and F, 6A and F, 8A, back down. Sometimes our ears have to get used to that sound. As we go quicker, it makes more sense. Listen to this. All of a sudden, putting line 1 and 2 together, listen to all the nice little melodies coming out of here. Line 1 and 2. Or straight up through the scale, line 1 and 2. Ending on a C on 8, or maybe down that same way. So we have all sorts of ways of looking at line 1 and 2. Let's go to page 2 right there, which gives you the third part of this little scale, which starts up there on 8. Starts with 8A, the same one we just ended with. We can go right on up to 10A, and then back to 8 with 4 and 6. Now that's sort of the hard way to me, because you have to change strings out of that, and you have to mute those notes to get rid of that. I thought we put that in there, but that's not necessarily the best way. The second half of that line is really the best way. Start with that 8A. Have both A and B pedals down, though, and start with the 5th and 8th string. Both pedals are down. Now just reach out and hit the 2nd string and the 6th. Gives you a nice G7th harmony there. And let the pedals off for the last note. So the last 3 notes are very pop sounding. Classic sounding is what I really meant to say. So we can play along these same little groups, but again, none of these, 8A is not a C chord. 8 with a B pedal in there is not a C chord, but the last one is. So let's literally start this little phrase. If we're going to practice line 3 there, let's start with 8 with no pedal. And then let's go to the 8A. And then on up to the 2nd and 6th. Or backwards through the... So we can play along with that. So here's line 3, along with that first rhythm track. Nothing but C chord. Getting the phrases together. Starting with C. Now 8A. That's that first half, the hard way. Or, now let's do the one that's the easiest, the second half. Here we go, starting with a C, 8A, the B pedal. Again, 8A, 2 and 6, maybe backwards. Does that sound familiar to a melody you've heard before? Might be this way. Backwards, down the other way. Now, if we take all three lines, it comes out to be line 4. Here's everything from beginning to end. 1D, 3, 3A, 4A and F, 6A and F, 8A, 8B. Again, this is line 4. Lots of tension there. Do it a little quicker and it'll be a little bit more pleasing to the ear. Here it is, the last line, a little faster. Or backwards. Again. So you can take these little things like that and take line 4 there and learn the whole thing. But let's go to the next page. Page 3. There are several ways of approaching this scale. There are some unique little quirks and turns in it, if we want to say that. So here's page 3, the first line up there. Again, let's start with that 1D. So we can do the scale this way, 1D to the 1A, to 3A, nothing new there. On up to 4A and F, 6A and F, to 8A, and you can carry that right on to 10A. And finally back to the C there on the 8th fret, 4 and 6. That's really not all that new, it just says that's one way of doing it. Some melodies you might want to use that little scale. Let's go to the second line there on page 3. A little different harmony happening here. Same notes literally though, 1 with a D. Up to 3 with no pedals, 3A. Now we jump up 3 frets to that 6D, 8D, 8A. Keep both pedals down. Here's that little 2 and 6 phrase. And finally end with that straight C. Work on both of those so you can go up through them both ways. And backwards. And then take the second one and get it so you can play it. And backwards. Playing along with the rhythm track, take your time and get where you can play through those plenty of ways. Matter of fact, if you go to page 4, you'll see it both ways with another little quirk in there. Page 4, the top line says backwards or descending. I'll show you another way to play some nice little harmony there. The second note, starting with the first one, 4 and 6 is just C, of course. Now, instead of going to 2 and 6 for that harmony, go to 2 and 7 and listen to the sound. And then down to 8A. Nice counterpoint harmony going there. And then to the 8D, to the 6D, 3A, back to 1A, and the 1D. That's really the scale that we'd like to use in many little songs. And if you want to, there's another way. Go to the very last line there. It says descending, line 2. Another way of playing that second note. Starting with 4 and 6 again. Hit your D lever, lower the 4th string, and raise the 6th. That's a nice little smooth way. To the 8A. Now back to 6A and F, to 4A and F, to 3A. Let it off. Finally back to 1D. So there's a lot of ways of bending those notes, and all we're doing is getting the same little scale notes. Here it is again, the descending. Here we go. We'll take both of those all along with the rhythm track. Here's page 3 first. Line 1 and line 2. Remember, we're going to take up and down. We'll take page 3, page 4, both of them will be going up through the scale. You're going to practice the scale until you can do it both ways.
1, 2,
Page 3.
4.
Backwards. All right, here's line 2 there. Backwards. Now let's go to page 4. The same idea, but these are all descending. Let's do that one more time. The top line. And then let's go to the bottom line. This is the little bend on the second note. The descending. I like that one. That's pretty. Going up through it maybe. Put them all together, you still don't get anything but the one thing. So there you have it. These are the basic little scales we were talking about. They're going to be nothing but 8 notes. The idea is there are a few little ways of changing the harmonies, and you want to know every way there is. That way your playing doesn't get boring. The idea is this is only one scale. This is what we're going to call root 1 from now on. Every melody we want can be found in here some way, maybe with a slight change or a grace note here and there, as we say. But you have to know the basic route of travel, and that's what these are. Remember, we're only dealing with the chord of C right now, but we're going to be changing those chords before long, and there are places in this scale where the right notes that sound right now will sound wrong, but others will sound right. Depends on what we want to stop on and how we want to phrase it. So your job right now is to take this scale and learn to play it so well, several ways. You know, take all the little harmonies that are in there, play them till you can play them without thought. If you have to read them to play them, you don't know them. You need to take this book and throw it away so you know this scale right and left. We'll just call this root 1, kind of get that ingrained in your mind too. By all means, play along with a rhythm track all you can so you get the sound in your mind of what those tension notes sounds like. A lot of people, the first time they play them and they hear that tension note, they say, wow, that's wrong. That's because your ear has to get used to it. It's easy to listen to it when somebody else plays it, but when you do it, it's a new idea. So take your time, always do it with a rhythm track, and get the feel of the scale. Literally, it's a physical thing you have to learn. The ear thing's the easy part. It's learn to move your feet and the pedals and get the knee levers in the right spot. And do it, execute it so you can get from one end to the other without making a mistake, because there's more to come and there's more scales. Then we're going to start tying them all together. So stop right here and get all these little quirks and turns together where you can play this one, and most of all, get the sound in your mind. We'll come right back and we'll take up some more. It's your turn. Okay, let's take a little bit more information, and we'll get right down to playing some melodies here in a minute. Go up to page 5 there in your book, and we'll take another scale another way. We'll call this root 2. Literally, it's going to be the same notes with different harmonies on different strings, but we need several ideas of scales to really get around to where we can play some decent melodies. One scale won't do it. You need several ideas. So go right to page 5, and let's go right to the guitar. I'll show you what I'm talking about. On page 5 there, we'll take it in little short sections again. This is starting on the 3rd and 5th string, and this is probably the most popular sounding for fills and stuff. Starting with the first 3 notes there. This is the top line on page 5, starting with 3 with pedal, up to 6. That's literally like a G7th sound, by the way. Looks like B flat, but it's not. Then it goes on up to 8. Now take the second half of that line. You'll see there's another way of doing that too. You can go from 3A and B up to 6A. And that's the sound of a G major. The 6A is a G major sound. Let's say if you had 6A and F in there, that would be the sound of a G, but we're not playing the 4th string. So 6A just sounds like 2 notes out of a G major chord. Or you can let the pedal off, and it sounds like a G7 sound. So either one will do. So we can go, or we can go with the second half. Literally, you can pedal it in there. Or the other way. So the A pedal in and out on the 6th fret is legal. So you can use it any way you like. Or we can take the second line there, in little sections there. The second line starts with 8, a nice C chord, and both pedals down, and up to 11A. Now that literally is a C chord. It's 2 notes out of 11A and F. If the 4th string had an 11F on it, it would sound like this. But I'm not playing 3 notes. I'm just playing 2 because that's how we play most of our melodies. It's 2-note melodies. So 11A will be fine. So the second part goes, putting the 2 lines together there on page 5, starting down on 3, going on up, or all 6 notes in a row, all 5 notes. Or we can do the second half of the line now there on page 5. Remember, we can start on 8 to 8A and B. Here's a different harmony, but the same note as 11 was, 10A and B. That's a G harmony instead of a C. Listen to the difference. Here's 10A and B. Here's 11A. Same note on the top, but a C harmony is 11A. Back up 1 fret with both pedals, and you get a G harmony. So either one might be available to you any way you need it. In fact, that'll be a nice little quirk in your melody playing. Or remembering that 11A is a nice C stopping point. So let's take the whole thing, line 1 and 2, with that 10A and B, then to the 11A as an ending part. Here we go, 3A and B, maybe up to 6A, let it off, up to 8. Now the second line, 10A and B to 11A. Some of you might be noticing right fast here that I'm rocking a certain way. I play the A and B pedal. This is my A, that's the B, and that's the C. If you play the outside 2, you'll just do it the opposite. It really doesn't matter. No way is better than the other, so don't go changing. I just have my A pedal on the inside, the B. I'm just reversed. It's called the day setup. You might have the Emin setup. Either way is fine. Let's go to line number 3. We are going to finish this little scale out. It starts up on 13 with just 13, no pedal, up to 15, and 15A and B. Again, all of these, you notice, are, since we're a C scale, is nothing but C, F, and G. So we can use 13 to 15, and obviously ending with a C note there. Well, there's another way of doing this, too. Look at the second half of line 3. This is going to be a new wrinkle for a lot of people. 12, with just the B pedal in, is the sound of a G7. If we went to 13, as we started line 3 before, that's an F sound. If you play 12B, that's the sound of a G7th or a G9th. That'll fit in this scale as well. So you could play the last half of this scale going 13 to 15, or you could go 12B. They're all legal. Listen to how this sounds. Let's listen to page 5, the second line, and then page 6, the third line. Here we go. Here's 8, 8A and B, up to 11A. Here's the 13 to 15 pedals. Well, that's one way. Let's do that again with a 12B in it. Here we go, back on line 2. 8 pedals to 11A. Now 12B. Nice little sound. Listen to that. Maybe backwards down through these scales too, remember? Listen to that one more time. Backwards using that 12B, 13 to 12B. 15 pedals. 15, 13, 12B, 11A, 10A and B, 8 pedals, and let it off. Well, let's go to the line 4 there on page 6. Here's the whole scale that we might use in a melody anytime we want to. The bottom line there goes 6, 8, 8 pedals, 10A and B, straight to 13, 15A and B. Let's do that along with a rhythm track again. The first rhythm track on your cassette, straight C, just for a little bit so we can get the sound of it.
1, 2.
Line 4. Really slow. Go slow to learn it, maybe backwards. Back to 13, 10 pedals, 8 pedals, 8, 6, 5, down to 3, A and B. A little quicker now. Very valuable scale there, down. All right, that's pretty easy that way. Take that little scale all you can there and learn to play it like it is. But let's go on to page 7. There's more about this scale that we need to know. That scale is one you probably know quite well. Looking at the just for practice, we're on page 7, the top line. It says ascending. Again, with a few little changes in here. Here's the 3A and B. Instead of going to straight 6, let's go to that 6A because that's a G sound. On up to 8 pedals. Up to 11A instead of 10A and B here. To the 12B, to the 15, and the 15 pedals. One more time. Here's ascending. The line number 1 on page 7. Root 2 we call it. That has a nice little strange overtone of tension in it all the way through it. It's that G7th or G9th on 12 that makes it nice, and it's the 6A. Well, look at the descending, going backwards down it there. The line number 2 there on page 7. Starting with C, of course, going to G, back to that 13 first, resolve it to the 12B, to 11A, 10A and B. That's taking all the little chances back to 8A and B, and just ending it on 8. Well, just take half a scale. Listen to how nice that sounds. This is descending 2. Nice little pedal pulls in there again. Nice to know how you can change those things around. Here's 1 and 2 together, both those lines. Get that one where you can play it. Here's the second one. Oh, let's play that along with a rhythm track so you can actually hear the overtones coming. Still, along with the first rhythm track. C chord. 2. Page 7. 3, 4. A little quicker. All right, let's do the second line down. Again. Again. And the second one. All right, let's take that one right there and get where you can play that one. But let's go to page 8 because there's more little ways of playing this thing than just one way. This is a little bit of a review, though. Page 8, the first line, straight down the pure scale we had before. Root 2, 13 to 10A and B, 8A and B, back to 6. That's nothing but the regular root 2, straight down, pure scale. But let's take line number 2 there, or descending 4, we'll call it, the fourth one of the descending order. Still on page 8, the bottom line there, started on a C, that's 11A. Back up to that 10A and B, 8A and B. Now going down to 6A, play both kinds of 6. The G major 6A to the G7th. Here's a new one, an F position, which is 4A. We can add that into the scale too. Listen to this little scale again. This is the bottom line again. 11A to 10B, 8A and B to 8, 6A to 6, 4A, resolve it to 3A and B. Listen to this one along with a rhythm track. Here we'll do all of page 8. Starting with the first line on page 8, straight down the scale.
4.
Pretty vanilla if you ask me. Quite easy though. Oh, let's take the one that has some fun and spice to it. Number 4, starting on 11A. Oh, that's got some nice tension to it. Again. Up. Or a lot of nice melody falling out of just those two. Okay, that's quite a bit to handle right there. So what we're going to take is root number 2 and get so we can play that. Maybe you can't get all the little different quirks in it that are going to happen as far as the harmony goes, but get the general idea of where it goes. Notice it takes a full 12 frets to do root 2. We're going to come right back. And you need to know root 1 and root 2 quite well, because we're going to start making up some melodies and finding out how root 1 and root 2 come together and become some nice information to play any melody you need. You need at least 2 scales to do very much good as far as finding the melody to any other song. But we've got some nice exercises that'll put root 1 and root 2 together. So make sure you have root 1 and 2 well in your mind, because when we put them together, it's going to get kind of confusing if you're not careful. By all means, do it along with a rhythm track so you get used to that tension against that C bass. Okay, it's your turn. Stop right here. Don't go any farther until you get this, because it's going to get tougher. We're going to take new scales too. It's your turn. Stop right here and we'll come right back. Let's have a little fun with these melodies and these harmonies that we've been dealing with here. We're going to take root 1 and root 2 and kind of pull them together and create a little song of our own that force you to play through them and to think both of them at the same time. Because that's, in the end, that's what we're after. It's where you can learn to play both scales, think both scales, maybe 3 or 4 at one time, but it's nice to start with just 2. So go up in your book there to page 9 and page 10. We've written a little song. We'll call it, I think it's... And start again. Big cheat there. That's a nice, easy, real easy little melody. You can cheat. Notice how we took all those notes right fast, played them straight, and then play around with the phrasing. Take this, take a right on root 12, make the best of it, and we'll come right back with a new one. Your turn. Let's go up to page 11 and 12 in your book there right fast, and we'll take the same scale, the same idea. Instead of taking a right on root 12, we're going to take a left on root 12 and put some new wrinkles in this thing. What you'll notice right off is that we're going to play basically the same scale, especially in root 1, or the first half of this thing. It's going to be very similar. We're just going to use the other ideas in terms of the D lever instead of using the A and F lever in there. The second part is where it's going to change the most, because we're going to take root 2, which is really on the 3rd and the 5th strings, and we're going to turn it upside down, since really the 3rd and 5th strings are the same harmony as the 5th and the 6th strings, but the harmony is turned over. So anything we could have played, as we did in the previous exercise, on the 3rd and 5th strings, now we can turn it around and play on the 5th and 6th strings, and the melody sounds different because the harmony's on top rather than the melody being on top. So let's go right in your book to page 11, and we'll see what we're talking about there. So right to your guitar on page 11. We start with the same rhythm track using C and G, but we start with the first notes. It looks very similar, but we're going to change a little bit. There's the first note, and instead of playing the second note like we did before, using the 2nd and the 6th string with the B pedal, let's use the 2nd and the 7th string. and then on to the 8A, right to the 8D, to the 6D, and now we're right back to almost what it looked like before, but we're going to use the straight 3 with no pedals. Now here's something we haven't talked about before. The 1F, a nice little diminished sound here to the 1F. We haven't put this in a scale before, but this leads to that little G7. That's why we put it in there. And then into the 1A. On up to 6D. This is a little bit of a cheat to 8A, to the 8D. Now here we go. Here's page 11, line 1 and 2. This is all in C. Listen. Nice sound, that 1A and F. And this is where we get a nice little pause. Here we go. In time, here's the first part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on to page 12. This is the second part. Instead of playing 3 and 5, play 5 and 6. That's the first 2 notes. Up to 6, a little change here. Instead of 8, 6 to straight 8, let's use a G7th, because we use that many times in melody work. 8 with a B makes a G7th sound instead of a C harmony, but they're both legal. Either C or G7th would work. On to 8A and B, to 10A and B, 13 to 15. Now the last line, 15A and B, back to 13, to 11A, 8A and B, to 8. So here's all of page 12 in time. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's the whole thing. This is page 11 and 12 in time. This is take a left on route 12. Studying scales. Scales 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Page 12. And start again, and that's where it'll go. Okay, let's take it along with the second rhythm track on your cassette. Again, it's just C and G, and we can repeat back and forth between one and then the other. 1. Take a left on route 12. 4. Page 12. Start again. Little cheat there. My interpretation. One more time. One more time, straight down. And that's about how it'll go all the way through. You can take this one and you can play take a left on route 12 and then turn it around and play take a right on route 12. Your turn. Stop right here and get these where you can play them with some style and some authority. A new melody. Your turn.